Tov, everyone. Tov. And welcome back. We were off last week. Yes, we were off last week because of Hanukkah. We thought that people probably had things to do, and as we all did. Yes, we did. Yeah, yes, and we figured, well, we'll just take the week off and let everybody have a good Hanukkah, and we would come back this week and pick up where we left off. So, do you have a good Hanukkah? Well, of course I do. I love Hanukkah. Yes, I believe you do. Yeah, and the new Hanukkah. Yes, yeah, that was the new Hanukkah that we had, and I get to sit in here and watch it all night long. Yeah, it's actually lasted filling up the cups with oil, and it would burn for about 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, about 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, and beautiful, beautiful light. We did post pictures up of it each night through Hanukkah, and so that everybody could enjoy it. And so, how many globes you break? I broke two this year. It's not bad. Yeah, not bad. Good thing we had extra. Yes, it is. It is a good thing that we had extra. So, but unfortunately, Hanukkah is over, and at sundown tonight, at sundown tonight, Hanukkah was over, and now we get back into the regular swing of things, and so we are back, and we are going to continue with our classic Hasidic tales. The last story. Yes, we are on the last story of the book, and this one is called the Seven Beggars, and interesting name. Yeah, yeah, it is an interesting name, and for those of you who have been wondering why the synagogue is called the House of Seven Beggars, well, you will probably find out this evening. So, yeah, we should get through this. Yes, we will get through this, and then we will pull out one of the other books, the Yiddish one. Yeah, yes, we have the book that we got from Yivo that has literally hundreds and hundreds. I think there's actually over 1,000 stories in there. So we got some for a long time. Yes, we have enough stories to last us for quite a while. So good to have everybody here. Let's see who we have in the chat room. So we have Kelsey Lynn and Marshall and Guy and Joe. Good to have you, and I believe your wife, maybe, Colleen and Charles. Uh, Good to have you all here. Kelsey Lynn was had a birthday yesterday. Yes, she did. She did have a birthday yesterday. So thank you for. Do I get to sing? Well, that was yesterday. Well, come on, let me sing. Okay, if you must. Yom Haledet Sameach, Yom Haledet Sameach, Yom Haledet Sameach, Yom Haledet Sameach. 220. Very nice. I'm glad you got that out of your system. I love to sing this song. Yeah, I know. Not as much as the other one. Oh, I really like that one. Yeah, but unfortunately, we don't have any anniversaries, so I guess you don't get to sing it. So maybe next time. Yeah, maybe next time. Maybe next time. So anyway, we forgot to do this at the beginning. It is Monday. Yeah, it is Monday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the House of Seven Beggars. Therefore, it must be Zeyde Story Corner. Of course, Zeyde Story Corner. Okay, so let me get you set up on your camera, and we can get on with the story. Oh, there I am. I am a good-looking Zeyde, don't you think? Okay, maybe we adjust the camera a little bit. Okay, maybe down a little. That's a little better. I think that's better. Okay. So we are going to finish the story of the seven beggars tonight. And that's going to finish the book. And then we're going to have to move on to a new book, which is a good thing. Okay, so if you remember, we were doing the story of the seven beggars. And it starts out with a couple of children who get lost in the forest after something goes on in the village. And they get separated, and the two children, a boy and a girl, they find each other. And they get hungry, as children will so often do. And during the days, they meet with seven beggars. So, and each one has something wrong. One cannot hear, and one cannot see. Did not have any feet. One did not have any hands. And each one of them made a curious blessing on them each time. He said, I bless you and hope that you become like me. So anyway, we go along, and they become beggars, and the other beggars take good care of them. And pretty soon they decide that the two should get married, so they make a wedding for them. And the children start to miss the beggars that they first ran into. And then all of a sudden, each one of them starts to show up each day of the wedding feast. So, let us pick up where we left off, shall we? Okay. So, let me back up just a little bit here. So this is the one who was talking about the land of luxury. And help the people of the other kingdom, for the taste, the beauty, and the odor had gone out of their fruit. And if you do not help them, the same evil may reach your land. So they set out for the spoiled kingdom, but lived in luxury on their journey. Remember, these are the men who had all the money and everything, so until they came close to the garden. And then the beauty and the taste and the delectable odors began to go from their own food, and they did not know what to do. So I gave them some of my bread to eat and my water to drink. And they tasted all the riches of their fine food, and they breathed all the delicate odors, and they saw all the beauties of the fruit in the bread and the water that I gave them. Meanwhile, the people of the spoiled kingdom remembered that their gardener was of one root and with the people of the land of luxury. So they decided to send envoys to the kingdom of plenty. The envoys met on the road with the people from the land of luxury, and they took counsel together and sent me first into the spoiled land. And that is where we left off the last time. So we pick up here. Then I went into the city and saw people assembled in the street. I listened to them and heard one whisper to the other, while the other laughed and whispered to a third. And I knew it was filth that they uttered. I went further and saw people quarrel, and go to court and quarrel again, and go to another court until the whole city was filled with judges and bribery. and the city was also filled with lust. Then I knew that the invading king had left his 3 battalions in the city to spread the 3 diseases of filth that had spoiled the taste in their mouths, and bribery that had made their eyes blind, and lust that was a stench in their nostrils. So I said to them, let us drive out these strangers, and perhaps the gardener will be found again. Then the men of the land of luxury, who ate of my bread and water, and were well of sight and scent and hearing, helped me, and wherever they caught one of the soldiers, they drove him from the land. There was a madman that wandered in the streets and cried continually that he was a gardener. Everyone laughed at him, and some even threw stones at him. Then I said to them, perhaps he is really the gardener. Bring him to me. They brought him, and I saw that he was indeed the gardener, and he was restored to the garden. So the people again knew the taste of their fruit, and the scent and the beauty in it. And in reward I was given the good life, and today I bestow it upon you. Again, the wedding guests rejoiced, and the bride and groom were happy, as a bride and groom should be. On the 3rd day, the children cried, what has become of the stammerer? Then the heavy-tongued beggar came and embraced them and said, here I am. In a clear voice he spoke to them. On that day, when we met in the woods, I blessed you with the wish that you might be as I am. And today I bestow it upon you as a gift. For look, you believe that I am dumb. Yet, in truth, I am not heavy-tongued, but I have no use for all man's words except those that are uttered in praise of God. And all other earthly words are not worthy of utterance. Indeed, I am gifted with speech. I can sing so beautifully that there is not one creature in the world, bird or beast, that will not stop to hear my song. And I have proof of this from the great man who is called the truly godly man. For once, all the sages of the world came together to prove who was cleverest. The first said, I have brought iron out of the earth. The second one said, I have found a way to make brass. And a third knew how to make tin. Another could make silver. And still another had discovered gold. Then one came who had made guns and cannons for war, and yet another one had discovered how to make gunpowder. But one said, I am wiser than all of you, for I am as wise as the day. They did not understand him. And so he said, if all our wisdom were taken together, it would not make a single hour. For one of you takes things out of the earth and mixes them together to make powder, and another takes iron out of the earth, and another brass. But all of your silver and iron and brass and gold is taken out of the earth that God made in a day. And all of the things that you take out, if put together, would not make a single hour of that day. While I am as wise as the entire day. Then I asked him, what day? And he turned to me and said, no matter which day. It may be you are wiser than I, for you have asked, what day? And I explained my wisdom to them, saying, you must know that time does not exist of itself, and that days are made only of good deeds. It is through men who perform good deeds that days are born. And so time is born. And I am he who goes all about the world to find those men who secretly do good deeds. I bring their deeds to the great man who is known as the truly godly man, and he turns them into time. Then time is born, and there are days and years. And this is the life of the world. At the far end of the world, there is a mountain. On the mountain top is a rock, and the fountain of water gushes from that rock. This you know, that everything in the world possesses a heart, and the world itself has a great heart. The heart of the world is complete, for it has a face and hands and breasts and toes, and the littlest toe of the world's heart is more worthy than any human heart. So at one end of the earth there is the fountain that flows from the rock on the mountain top, and at the other end is the earth's heart. And the heart desires the mountain spring. It remains in its place far at the other end of the earth, but it is filled with an unutterable longing. It burns with an endless desire for the distant fountain of water. In the day, the sun is like a blazing whip upon the heart because of its longing for the spring. But when the heart is utterly weak from the punishment of the sun, a great bird comes and spreads its wings and gives the heart rest. But even while it rests, it longs for the mountain spring, and it looks toward the peak of the mountain, For if it were to lose sight of the spring but for one instant, the heart would cease to live because of its great longing. It sometimes tries to go to the fountain, but if it goes nearer to the foot of the mountain, it can no longer see the spring on the top of the mountain, and so it must remain far away, for only from a distance may a mountain peak be seen. And if it were for an instant to lose sight of the spring, the heart would die, and then all the world would die. For the life of the world and everything in it is in the life of its heart. So, the heart remains longing at the other end of the earth, longing for the spring that cannot come towards it. For the spring has no share in time, but lives on a mountain peak far above the time that is on earth. And the mountain spring could not be of the earth at all, since it has no share in the earth's time, but for the earth's heart, which gives the spring its day. And as the day draws to its close, the time is ended. The heart becomes dark with grief. For when the day is done, the mountain spring will be gone from the earth. And then the earth's heart will die of longing. And when the heart is dead, all the earth and all the creatures upon the earth, they will die. And so, as the day draws to a close, the heart begins to sing farewell to the mountain. It sings its grief in wildly beautiful melody, and the mountain sings farewell to the heart, and their songs are filled with love and eternal longing. But the truly godly man keeps watch over them, and in that last moment before the day is done, and the spring is gone, and the heart is dead, and the world is ended, the good man comes and gives a new day to the heart. Then the heart gives the day to the spring, and so they live again. As the day comes, it is brought with melody and with strangely beautiful words that contain all wisdom. For there are differences between the days. There are Shabbos and Mondays, and there are holidays and days of the first of the month, and each day comes with its own song. All these days that the godly man gives to the heart of the world he has thought through me. For it is I who go about the world to find the men who do good deeds. And it is from these deeds that time is born. For each deed becomes a melody in my mouth, and from the melody the godly man makes a day, and the day is given to the heart, and she sings it to the fountain. Therefore, I am wiser than the sage who said he had the wisdom of an entire day. For from the truly godly man I have a gift enabling me to sing the songs and know the wisdom of all the days of the earth. And today I bestow upon you as a wedding gift the power to be as I am. At once there was joy among them, and the beggars all sang together. So they ended the day with joy. But on the fourth day, the children longed for the beggar with the twisted throat. And he came and said, "Here I am. Once before I blessed you that you might be as I am, and today I bestow upon you this wedding gift. Be as I am. You believe that I have a twisted throat. But see, my throat is really beautiful and straight. But there are foolish and evil things in the world, and I would not have any of them come into me through my throat. Therefore, my throat seems twisted. It is really clear and beautiful, and I have a voice that is wonderful in song. For through my throat I can imitate the call and the song of every creature that lives. I have this power from the land of melody, for there is a land where everyone, from the king to the smallest child, is wondrously skilled in music. Some play the harp, others play the violin, and some play many instruments. Once all of their greatest musicians came together, and each began to boast of his skill. One could play upon the harp, another upon the violin, and still another could play upon the harp and the violin, while there was one who said he could play upon every musical instrument. Then a man declared that he could imitate the sound of the harp with his voice, and another could imitate the sound of violins. One could imitate a drum, and still another could make a noise like a cannon. I too was there, and I said, "My voice is more wonderful than all your voices. For if you are such great musicians, can you bring help to the suffering nations?" And I told them, "There are two people whose countries lie 1,000 miles apart. And when night comes over the lands, the people cannot sleep. For with night there comes a strange moaning and wailing, so drear, so heavy weary, that the very stones groan and weep. And when the people hear this sound, they too must begin to moan and weep every night, all the men and the women and somebody else. As soon as we turn the page, are they stuck together? Yeah, or having just a little trouble getting that page over. Okay, there we go. And even the children of these countries lie awake, moaning and weeping with sorrow that is over them. And you who are so skilled in music, can you help those people? Then they asked me, will you lead us there? And I said, yes. So they all arose, and I led them. We came to one of the countries, and at night we heard this strange moaning that then every sages from the land of melody wept and moaned, but they could do nothing. Can you tell me, I said to them, where this sound comes from? And do you know, they asked. I know, for there are two beautiful birds that had mated together, and they were the only two birds of their kind. But once they were lost, one from the other, and they flew everywhere, each seeking its mate, until they became weary, and their hopes was gone from them, for they knew they were far from each other. Each settled alone where it was. One built his nest in his land, and the other built her nest where she was 1,000 miles away. Now, when night comes, the two birds begin to lament, each for the other, and it is their morning lament that the people hear, and they too must keen with the birds until there is no rest for them at night. The sages would not believe me, but said, can you take us to the bird's place? I said, I can take you there, but you will not be able to bear the weight of it by night or by day. For at night the lament is so great that you may not come near it, and during the day flocks of birds come to hear him, to cheer them in their loneliness, and all the birds sing merrily until the joy is so great as to be unbearable. This joy cannot be heard from afar, but if you come near it, you will succumb. Then the sages asked, can you write this thing? And I told them that I could make my voice like the voice of any living being, and that I also could send my voice to all places on earth, so that it might not be heard where I stood, but would be heard far away. I said to the wise men, will you go with me to the place that is neither one land or the other, but lies between them? For from that place I will send my voice with the sound of her voice to him, and I will send my voice with the sound of his voice to her, so that each will hear the other's voice. They will listen and tremble, and rise and spread their wings, and fly toward the place of the voice, so that they will meet together where I stand. Then I led them to a place that lay between two countries. The place was in a forest, and the ground was covered with snow. That's for all you people in North Carolina. Was covered with snow. I stood and sang, but the men could hear no sound come from me. Only they heard the sound of a door opening and closing, and they heard the sound of a gun, and they heard the barking of a hound as it ran over the snow for the kill. Yet they saw nothing. But I had sent my voices, and soon there were two pair of wings above us. Then the men of the land of melody understood how I had brought the two birds together, and they agreed that mine was the most wonderful voice of all, for I could send it wherever I choose. And so today I bestow upon you this gift, that you may be as I am. He finished speaking, and all the beggars made merry and sang. On the fifth day, the children in the midst of merriment sighed, "If the hunchback were only here." And there he stood and said, "I have come to your wedding, my children. And do you remember how I blessed you that you might be as I am? Today I bestow my wish upon you as a wedding gift. Be as I am. It seems to you that I am a hunchback, but indeed my shoulders are wide and straight and strong, and I have proof of this from the land where people once came together to see who could bear the heaviest burden upon the slightest support. Then one said, 'The top of my head is small enough, is a small enough place, and yet I carry myriads of creatures with all their needs upon it.' But they made sport of him, while another man said, 'You are like a creature I once saw. I thought he sat by a mountain, but when I came near, I knew that it was a mountain of refuse that had been thrown out of himself.' Then a third man said, 'I know of a small place that bears a burden greater than itself. For I have an orchard where fruit trees grow, and the fruit on the tree could many times cover the earth out of which the tree grows.' Many people said, 'That is indeed a great thing to come out of a little thing.' But another man declared, 'I have a tiny garden so beautiful that princes and kings come to walk in it. Then my garden is only a small place, but it has borne up to the weight of a kingdom. Still another spoke, saying, my speech is a slender support that bears great burdens, for I am a minister to a king. I hear the complaints and the praises and the petitions and the supplications of all his subjects. All those utterances are taken within me, and my word bears them to the king. But a fifth man answered him, my silence is less and yet greater than your word. For there are torrents of accusations against me, and curses, and foul names. But my only reply is silence, and my silence bears up against all the cries of my enemies. My silence is a little thing, and yet it withstands a great storm. Then another contender spoke. He was hidden because he was small, but he said, I am a little man, and yet I bear up a great burden. For I know a needy one who is far taller than myself, and though he is a greater light, he cannot find his way. I lead him, and were it not for me, he might fall and lose his path. And that is where we are going to pause. We are going to take our little break, and then we will return, and we will finish the story of the 7 beggars. So, stay tuned, and we will be back in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back. See, I told you I would be back, and here I am. Okay, thank you for all sticking around. We are going to finish the story of the 7 beggars, and we are going to finish the book, Classic Hasidic Tales. So, let us continue on. Okay, so let us get where we were. Okay, so I too was there, and I said, "It is true that some among you have the power of bearing up great burdens, for I have understood all that you have said. Even to the last of you, who spoke of leading a greater light. For the little man is greater than the greatest of you, since it is the wheel of the moon that he speaks of. For the moon is called a greater light. And the blind light, since her light is not her own. And though he is a little man, he leads the great wheel of the moon through the heavens, and his deed is to help to all the world, for the world has need of a moon. Nevertheless, it is me there is a support that is smaller and bears weightier burdens than all of these. For you know that every beast in the world has his favorite tree whose shadow is pleasant to him, and there he makes his place. And every bird has his favorite bough, and there he sits. But once it was asked, is there not a tree in the world in whose shade all beasts might linger, and upon whose boughs all birds might rest? It was answered that there is such a tree, and indeed a pleasant tree, for all the beasts of the earth are assembled in its shade, and they lie happily together. Yet there is no preying of one upon the other. And all the birds sing in the boughs of the tree. Then my people cried, how can we find that tree? And one wanted to go to the east, and another to the south. So they all became confused. But a wise man said, why do you quarrel over the way? First know whether you can come to the tree at all. For the tree has 3 roots. The first is belief. The second is fear of God. And the third is poverty. And the trunk of the tree is truth. Only those who possess these things can approach the tree. The people asked among themselves, but not one, many of them possessed the 3 qualities that are belief and fear and poverty. Those few might go, but they would not go and leave the others behind. We are one people, they said, and all of us must go or none. So they waited and labored amongst themselves, that all the people might possess the 3 needed qualities. And when all had belief and fear and poverty, they found that they were agreed on the one way to go to the tree. They went for a long time, and they saw the tree, and they saw that it did not stand on any place at all. And since it did not stand anywhere, how may they come to it? But I, the hunchback said, was there among them. And I said, I can take you to the place, for the tree is not of this earth, but of a place higher than the earth. See, upon my back I have a little place where great burdens may be borne. It is a tiny thing that is on the very edge of the world, where a higher world begins. And so, upon my little hump, one may go from this world to the world that is higher than here. Then I carried them all upon my hump, from the earth to the tree that stood above the earth. So you see that I carried a great burden upon a small support. For when I brought them to the tree, they said, You are indeed the master of all of us. For upon the smallest place you have borne the greatest burden. And thus I had their word for my deeds. For upon my back I carried all the ills and the woes and the sins of the people of the world. And now I bestow my gift upon you, that you may be as I am. Then they were merry, as beggars so often do in this story. Boy, every time we turn around, these guys are making merry. Who can blame them, right? Okay. Then they were merry. But on the sixth day, they remembered the beggar whose hands were withered, and they longed for him. Then he came and said, Here I am. And he embraced the children and gave them his gift. In the forest I blessed you, that you might be as I am. And today I bestow upon you as a wedding gift, be as I am. You believe that I cannot use my hands, he said, but indeed my hands are strong. Only there is nothing in the world worth their use, and I save their strength for other deeds. See, I have proof of their strength from the place of water, the palace of water. Is the place or the palace, one or the other. There was a princess who was ill, and many people came together, each boasting that he had the power to heal her in his hands. One said, I have such a power in my hands that when I shoot an arrow, I can seize it and bring it back. Then I said to him, What sort of arrow can you bring back? For there are 10 kinds of arrows, since there are 10 sorts of poison that may be put upon arrows, and one is stronger than the other. And again I asked him, Can you draw back an arrow only while it is still in... Here we go with the pages again. Still in flight? Or can you draw it back even after it has stricken its victim? He answered, I can draw it back even after it has struck its victim. But it is only the first kind of arrow that I can draw back. If you can only draw back the first kind of arrow, I said to him, you cannot heal the princess. Another man was there who said he had such a power in his hands that whenever he took something from someone, instead of taking, he gave. Then I knew he was a master of good. And I said, What sort of good do you give? The 10th sort, he told me. So I said, You cannot heal the princess, for you could never come to her chamber. She is surrounded by 10 walls, and you can only pass through the first of them. A man was there who said he had such a power in his hands that he gave wisdom to whomever he touched. And it was he who had given wisdom to all the sages of the world. But I said to him, there are 10 degrees of wisdom. Of which sort of wisdom can you give? He could only give one of the 10. Then I said, you cannot heal the princess, for you could never find out her pain. There are 10 degrees of pain, and you know only one. For you can give only one sort of wisdom with your hands. Another was there, who said, I have so great a power in my hands that I can catch a storm wind as it flies and hold it and let it out as a gentle wind or strong, however I desire. But I said to him, there are 10 winds, and which wind can you catch? The whirlwind, he answered. Then I told him, you cannot heal the princess, for you know the melody of only a single wind, and there are 10 winds, and each wind has a melody, and the princess may be healed only through song. Then they cried to me, what sort of power have you in your hands? And I told them, all the 9 parts of each of the things you cannot do, I can do. And this is the story. There was a king who fell in love with a princess. And he called sorcerers and made magic spells over her until he caught her in his love and brought her to his palace. But once at night he dreamed that the princess arose from her bed and murdered him. The king was terribly frightened. He called all his sages to him and asked them the meaning of his dream. They told him, the dream is true. As you dreamed, so it will happen. At this, he did not know what to do. He could not kill the princess, for he loved her. And he could not send her away, for he had suffered so much for her. And if he sent her away, someone else might have her. And if she went to someone else, she might return to do what she had done in his dream. Yet he was afraid to keep her by him. The king did not know what to do, so he did nothing. And as the days passed, his love for the princess waned, for he thought of her always as a murderess in his dream. And as his love waned, the spell fell from the princess, and her love waned until it became hatred, and she hated the king. Then she ran from the palace, but he sent out searchers to find her. Searchers returned and said, we have seen her wandering near the palace of water. For the king had a palace that was the most wonderful of all palaces on earth. It was built entirely of water. The walls of the palace were clear water. They stood and glimmered in the sun. The earth upon which the palace stood was deep water. The garden about the palace were of water, and they were filled with all manner of fruits and flowers, luscious and gold and green, all liquids as the sea. The palace and the garden were surrounded by 10 watery walls. No man might come into that place, for surely he would be drowned. When the guards told the king that they had seen the princess wandering near the walls of water, he cried, "We will catch her there." And the king went out with his men to pursue the princess. But she saw them coming. She was seized by terror. She thought she would rather die than be taken by them again. She looked at the walls and thought, "Perhaps I can even pass through the walls and reach the palace." Then she ran into the water. As the king saw her run into the water, he cried, "My dream was true. She is a sorceress." And he shouted to his men, "Kill her!" They shot their arrows after her, and each of the 10 arrows struck the princess, and upon each arrow was another of the 10 poisons. But she found the gate beneath the watery wall, and she passed through the 10 walls and fell within the palace. And there she lies in a swoon. Only I can heal her, for only he who has the 10 virtues in his hand can pass through the 10 walls of water. And when the king and his men sought to run after her, they were all drowned in the sea. But under the walls of water are the 10 winds, and each wind blows beneath the sea and raises the waters up into a wall. And while the wind remains under the ocean, the water remains on high. But I can seize the 10 winds, and I can pass through the 10 walls of water. I can go into the palace and draw the 10 poison arrows from the princess, and I can heal her 10 wounds with my 10 fingers, for through 10 melodies she may be healed entirely. And then they understood that I might truly heal the princess. They agreed that the greatest power was in my hands. And now I bestow the power upon you, my children. There was great joy, greater than even before, all that day until the next day. And then they longed for the coming of the legless beggar. But now the story is heavy to tell, for every word in it is burdened with meaning. And whoever is filled with the knowledge of the book of mysteries may understand. For the meaning of the arrows that could be drawn back is written in its passages, and the meaning of the virtue that could stand against the walls of water is in the lines, and their righteousness is in the waves of the sea. And the 10 sorts of wounds and the 10 healing melodies are also written in the Zohar. But the last beggar, who did not have use of his feet, what may be told? For in his story is the end of the beginning, and of the tale of the young prince who asked, Who am I? And why am I in the world? And who sighed when he was told to be joyous? For with the coming of the seventh beggar, there will come the answer. But that may not be revealed and cannot be revealed, and will not be known until Moshiach comes. May he come soon and in our days. And that is the end of the book. It's a great book, huh? Good stories. I hope you all enjoyed the stories from the book Classic Chassidic Tales. When we return, we will start another book. But I tell you, these stories that we have been reading these many weeks are very mysterious stories. There is great meaning in them below the surface of the wonderful story that we read. I hope you will study them a little further. So, until the next time we meet, I am going to just say, Laila Tov.